General adult tests testing for Helicobacter pylori. Helicobacter pylori is a type of bacteria that thrives in the stomach lining, where it can cause recurrent indigestion and stomach or gastric ulcers to develop. It may also be present but cause no symptoms, which is why many people who have the infection are not aware of it. So we have here a magnified view that shows the number of H. pylori bacteria on cells from a person's stomach. Fecal antigen test. A stool sample can be used to identify an active H. pylori infection by checking for antigens. These are substances that cause an immune response associated with the bacteria. A stool sample is sent to the lab for analysis. You do not need to fast before the stool sample is given, but you will need to avoid taking any antibiotics for a month beforehand, as they may affect H. pylori bacteria. Acid-suppressing medication can be taken for the 2 weeks before the sample is given. If an active infection is detected, your doctor will prescribe antibiotics. You will also need to be tested again after the treatment to ensure that the infection has been cured. H. pylori is found in up to 50% of the population. Breath test. The presence of H. pylori in the stomach can be detected by analyzing a breath sample taken after drinking a special liquid. You will be given a drink that contains urea, which is tasteless, and after waiting 15 to 30 minutes, a breath sample will be taken. You will need to stop taking antibiotics for 4 weeks or acid-reducing medication for 2 weeks leading up to the test, as this could affect the validity of the test result. Your doctor or the test center should give you details. You will also need to fast for 6 hours before the test. H. pylori infection is thought to be widespread, though most affected people do not experience any symptoms. It is not completely clear how a person becomes infected with the bacterium. It could be through coming into contact with stools from an infected person or via food or drink that they have prepared. Good hygiene practices, such as hand washing and eating properly cooked food, can help prevent infection. Recurrence in a partially treated person can also occur. For example, if the treatment is not taken properly. Thank you for your attention.
Let's now go to pathology of yin-yang imbalance. Let's discuss heat-cold patterns. In yin-yang imbalance and heat-cold patterns, thus a deficiency of yang usually generates empty cold, but it is also be associated with excess of yin, as for example, when it generates dampness or phlegm. We can see in the figure here the deficiency of yang resulting in empty cold, the deficiency of yang leading to empty cold, and the deficiency of yang associated with excess of yin or dampness and phlegm associated with full cold. The relative balance of yin and yang is reflected in conditions of heat or cold. Heat is an excess of yang and cold is an excess of yin. We can therefore postulate the correspondence difference between yin yang, cold heat, and full empty as follows. The excess of yang is full heat, the deficiency of yang is empty cold, the excess of yin is full cold, and the deficiency of yin is empty heat. The transformation and interaction between yin and yang, there is a tendency for both full cold and full heat to eventually lead to empty cold and empty heat, respectively. In fact, full cold tends to weaken the yang qi. This leads to yang deficiency, which in turn will lead to empty cold. Full heat tends to injure yin qi. This leads to yin deficiency, which in turn will lead to empty heat. We can see in the figure the interactions between full cold and empty cold. The full cold obstructs the yang qi, which leads to empty cold, and the full heat and empty heat, which the full heat injures the yin qi and leads to empty heat. The deficiency of yang and deficiency of yin are not mutually exclusive and may occur simultaneously. Generally, this happens only in kidney deficiency, as the kidneys are the root and the origin of all the yin and yang energies of the body and the source of the physiological fire and water. A kidney deficiency often, but not always, involves a deficiency of both yin and yang. This is especially common in women over 45. The yin and yang mutually consume each other, thus this is very apparent, especially in pathology. Excess of yin that are cold, dampness, or phlegm tends to injure yang because it obstructs the movement of and transformation of yang, and excess of yang, that is heat, tends to injure yin because it tends to dry up yin. And to summarize, both full cold and full heat eventually lead to empty cold and empty heat. Deficiency of yang and deficiency of yin are not mutually exclusive and may occur simultaneously, especially in the kidneys. The yin and yang mutually consume each other. Excess of yin that are cold, dampness, or phlegm tends to injure yang, and excess of yang that is heat tends to injure yin. Thank you for your attention.
Put Yang Ming stomach meridian Qi Chong Qi rushing. Qi Chong surging Qi level with the pubic symphysis and conception vessel 2, Tu Shun lateral to the midline, just superior to the inguinal ligament on the medial side of the femoral artery. 5 Shun inferior to the umbilicus. Clinical relevance. Although one's acupuncture needle should not reach the spermatic cord, stomach 29 overlies this important structure. As such, point activation with electroacupuncture, manual therapy, needle manipulation, or laser therapy may influence the function and blood supply of the cord's contents. That is, the vessels may dilate, the nerves may modulate, and myofascial elements relax. The result would likely lead to improved testicular function and reproductive capacity. Stomach 30, Qi Chong, Qi rushing, surging Qi, penetrating Qi, Qi's breakthrough, Qi thoroughfare, ship's droppings. Crossing point of the Chong Mai, penetrating vessel with Ren and Du Mai, point of the Sea of Nourishment, regulates Chong Mai as an important point on the stomach meridian. Through its crossing with Chong Mai, it links pre-heavenly Qi, the kidneys, and post-heavenly Qi, which is the stomach and the spleen, and can strengthen the whole system, promoting the restoration of kidney essence, the Jing. This makes it a wonderfully freeing and restorative points of the body, mind, and spirit of earth. Stomach 30 and 36 together from the Sea of Nourishment, they are called upon where there is long-term severe malnutrition and depletion of the stomach and spleen or digestive stagnation. The great reservoir or sea of nourishment and the strong coursing action of both points can help bring relief. Stomach 30 reinforces stomach and spleen's role in the formation of qi and blood and rotting, ripening, and transformation. The nature of Chongmai is powerful, combining both a yin nourishing aspect and a yang surging of qi from its mix with Ren and Du Mai. This point can be used alone or to give further emphasis to the opening and coupled point of Chong Mai. If there is a depression and stagnation for long-term blood deficiency or heartbreak from a lack of harvest in a relationship, this point can be used to reinvigorate while restoring nourishing blood for the shen to house itself. In this instance, you might combine it with the yin wei mai, which also tonifies the blood, especially if there is sleeplessness or palpitations and anxiety as well. Regulates qi and blood in the lower jaw and can be used for abdominal masses, swelling of the genitals, retention of placenta. Regulates the stomach's qi, stimulates the digestive system, regulates blood, especially stagnant blood in the uterus, regulates groin area and genital problems. The powerful qi of the stomach 30 raises qi, together with the stomach and spleen controlling of the descending and ascending of qi. It is helpful in regulating the qi in situations like prolapse. From its position at the juncture of the body and legs and its lower pathway down the medial aspect of the legs, it can be used to promote circulation, promotes essence, and thus can help impotence. Indications: to restore movement and vitality from depletion, pain and swelling of the external genitalia, uterine prolapses, infertility and impotence, retention of placenta, moves stagnation of blood, empirical point for food poisoning. Crossing point of Renmai and Chongmai, point of the sea of nourishment. This powerful point can help with genital and sexual disorders such as infertility and impotence. Often combined with stomach 36, which together form the sea of nourishment, and which can be wonderful for nourishing the body and mind where there has been a history of chronic malnutrition. Urinary and reproductive problems points are stomach 30, stomach 36, spleen 6, conception vessel 3, conception vessel 4, bladder 23, bladder 25, bladder 28. Evidence-based applications. Acupuncture at stomach 30 may impact reproductive function through its effect on afferent sensory signal transmission via the ilioinguinal nerve, which serves the roots of the penis and the scrotum. A case series reported that massage at stomach 30 effectively resolves hydrocele. Acupuncture at stomach 30, stomach 36, spleen 4, spleen 6, liver 3, kidney 3, LI 4, and pericardium 6, plus moxibustion at bladder 13, bladder 22, bladder 23, bladder 52, conception vessel 3, conception vessel 4, conception vessel 5, conception vessel 6, conception vessel 19, lung 9, and large intestine 14 significantly increase this percentage of normal sperm in patients with idiopathic oligoasthenoterozoospermia OAT syndrome. Following a series of acupuncture treatments, men with poor quality sperm experienced a significant increase in fertility index following improvements in the parameters of total functional sperm fraction, percent viability, total motile, spermatozoa per ejaculate, and integrity of the axonema. 12 acupuncture points from the following group were selected accordingly to patient presentation: lung 7, large intestine 4, large intestine 11, stomach 30, stomach 36, spleen 6, spleen 9, spleen 10, heart 7, bladder 20, bladder 23, bladder 33, kidney 6, kidney 7, pericardium 6, liver 5, liver 8, conception vessel 1, conception vessel 2, conception vessel 4, conception vessel 6, and governing vessel 4. Thank you for your attention.
Let's now go to stomach patterns. Let's discuss retention of food in the stomach. This concept is due to food stagnation in the stomach, manifests as fullness, distension, and pain in the epigastrium. This analysis pattern is mainly caused by irregular diet, voracious eating, and drinking, or by intrinsic stomach qi deficiency, which halts the digestion and transit of food. The key symptoms would be fullness, distension, and pain in the epigastrium, foul belching, acid regurgitation, vomiting, and the history of improper or voracious food intake. Clinical manifestations would be fullness, distension, and pain in the epigastrium, refusal of abdominal pressure, anorexia, rotten or foul belching, acid regurgitation, vomiting or sour and undigested food, distension and pain, which can be relieved after vomiting or intestinal flatus, abdominal pain, diarrhea with the sensation of incomplete defecation and with a foul odor, or constipation, thick and sticky tongue coating, and a slippery pulse. The analysis of food retention in the stomach. If there's retention of food in the stomach, then the stomach qi is stagnated and fails to descend. There would be a stagnation of stomach qi, and it results in fullness, distension, and pain in the epigastrium, or refusal of pressure. If there is food stagnation and failure of intake, there will be anorexia. If there's rotten food causing turbid qi to counterflow upward, there will be foul belching and acid regurgitation. If stomach qi counterflows upward, there will be vomiting. If stomach is depressed, qi is relieved temporarily. There will be comfort after vomiting. If the food stagnation in the intestinal tract and failure of transportation, there would be abdominal pain, intestinal flatus, diarrhea with foul smell, or constipation. There's also turbid qi in the stomach, counterflows upwards. There would be thick, sticky coating, and a manifestation of food stagnation results as slippery and deep pulse. The food stagnation of the stomach, the etiology: overeating, eating too quickly, eating while worrying. Underlying or accompanying pathology: obstruction of food in the stomach, preventing stomach qi from descending, stomach deficient and cold, phlegm, heat, fire in the stomach. Signs and symptoms would be epigastric pain, fullness and distension, discomfort alleviated by vomiting or passing not a stool, nausea and vomiting of sour fluids, halitosis, sour regurgitation, belching, insomnia, diarrhea or constipation, and poor appetite. The pulse would be full and slippery. The tongue would be with thick coating, which is either white or yellow. The treatment principle is to harmonize and stimulate the sending of stomach qi, move food stagnation. The acupuncture treatment we can use is REN 13, which subdues rebellious stomach qi, stomach 20 stagnant food, stomach 45 abducts stagnant food and calms the mind. Pericardium 6 stimulates the sending of qi. REN 12 supplements and harmonizes the stomach. REN 10 stimulates the sending of qi. Stomach 44 clears stagnation and heat. Spleen 4 moves stagnant food. Stomach 19 harmonizes middle burner. Kidney 21 harmonizes stomach. And we can use needle with drainage. For relevant advice, it is crucial that a person with food stagnation regulates the way they eat and what they eat. They should not eat too quickly or too much at a time. They should sit upright when eating and chew their food well. They should eat food that is easy to transform, and they should not eat too late in the evening. Stroking downwards with a finger from REN 16 to REN 8 will help stomach qi and the indigested food to descend, Walking or stretching after meals is recommended. Physical exercise in general will be beneficial. Thank you for your attention.
Let's have a diagnosis by 8 fundamentals, the yin-yang syndromes. Yin and yang syndromes are the chief of the 8 fundamentals. The others are really their developments. Syndromes of yin-yang fall into the following 6 categories, each with its typical pattern: yin syndromes, yang syndromes, syndrome of yin deficiency, syndrome of yang deficiency, syndrome of yin depletion, and syndrome of yang depletion. Yin-yang syndromes, yin syndromes, are those generally conform to the nature of yin. Yin syndromes encompass all interior symptoms, deficiency symptoms, and cold symptoms. Clinically, yin syndromes are many and varied. The most commonly seen are the following: dark or dusky complexion, despondency, heaviness of the body with passivity, cold aversion with cold limbs, fatigue and weakness, soft and low voice, anorexia, diarrhea, and increased clear hearing. The tongue is pale, plump, and tender, and the pulse is deep and slow or feeble, or thread-like and impeded. Yang syndromes are those that generally conform to the nature of yang. Yang syndromes encompasses all exterior syndromes, strength syndromes, and heat syndromes. Clinically, yang syndromes are also many and varied. The most commonly seen are the following: flushed face with red eyes, chills and fevers, restlessness, hoarse respiration, loud and high voice, constipation, and decreased dark yellow urine. The tongue is red or crimson, with yellow and dry coating. The pulse is floating and rapid, surging and large, or slippery and replete. In yin-yang deficiency syndrome, syndrome of the yin deficiency is those of heat that develop when yin and the essence are damaged, so that yin is unable to restrain yang. Yang qi then acts with little opposition, and fire arising out of yin deficiency flames upward. The typical pattern of yin deficiency symptoms includes emaciation, a dry mouth and throat, dizziness with blurred vision, palpitation of the heart, insomnia, hotness in the 5 centers, recurrent fever, night sweat, flushed cheeks, a red tongue with little coating, and a thread-like and rapid pulse. Syndrome of the yang deficiency is those of cold that develop when yang qi is damaged, so that yang is unable to restrain. The deficient yang qi fails in its actions of providing motive force or warmth. In contrast, yin qi becomes poorly restrained and gives rise to deficiency cold. The typical pattern of yang deficiency symptoms is as follows. There are fatigue with weakness, shortness of breath, reluctance to speak, somnolence with desire to curl up, cold aversion with cold limbs, tastelessness, absence of thirst or excessive drinking of warm drinks, clear urine, loose feces, and a pale complexion. The tongue is pale and plump, and the pulse is deep, slow, and forceless. Yin-yang depletion syndromes. Depletion of the yin or yang is a critical condition. If rescue is delayed or inadequate, death may ensue. Because yin and yang are mutually dependent and supportive in their mutual opposition, depletion of one can lead to depletion of the other. Syndrome of yin depletion is those that result from massive exhaustion or loss of yin fluid so that yin verges on total collapse. Yin depletion comes about mainly because of high fever, profuse sweating, protracted vomiting or diarrhea, or massive blood loss. Any illness of extreme heat or extreme yin deficiency can easily end in yin depletion. Because of the depletion of yin fluids, deficiency heat arises and disturbs the interior. Consequently, the main symptoms of yin depletion are profuse warm and sticky sweat, hot body and limbs, restlessness, short and rapid respiration, thirst with preference for cold drinks, dry lips and tongue, wrinkled skin, oliguria, and a thread-like rapid and forceless pulse. This constitutes the typical pattern of deficiency heat. Syndrome of yang depletion is those that result from massive exhaustion of yang qi approaching the point of total collapse. Because qi escapes with fluid, yang depletion often follows excessive sweating, vomiting, diarrhea, or massive blood loss. In a patient with chronic yang deficiency or exuberant cold yang deficient can also develop readily. Weakened yang qi is unable to solidify and astringe. As a result, such symptoms of deficiency cold may appear. Profuse cold sweat, cold body with cold aversion, weariness and lying in curled position, weak and shallow breathing, tastelessness without thirst, pallid complexion, and a pale but moist tongue, and a distinct pulse that is on the verge of stopping. Thank you for your attention.
Documentation strategies. The SOAP approach. The most common approach for documenting a history and physical is the SOAP format. The SOAP format stands for Subjective Data, Objective Data, Assessment, and Plan. In documenting the history and physical examination, you should remember that the subjective section includes any information or facts that the patient presents or that the chart provides. Standard sections within the subjective section include chief complaint, history of present illness, past medical history, medications, allergies, last menstrual period for women, family history, social history, nutritional assessment, and the review of systems. The objective section consists of data and information obtained by the examiner with his or her eyes, ears, and hands. If obtained at the time of the examination or immediately afterwards, laboratory findings and diagnostic test results are also recorded in the objective section. Previous test results belong in either the history of present illness or in the review of systems. Assessment refers to the final assessment. It pulls together the findings presented in the subjective and objective sections to form a diagnosis. The plan outlines the treatment plan related to the chief complaint, current comorbidities, and/or additional problems that have become evident during the examination. Two broad subclassifications of the SOAP format are a comprehensive health history and physical examination, and a focused or episodic health history and physical examination. Both a comprehensive and focused history and physical use the same format, but the extent of the information obtained varies. The reason for the patient's visit and the extent of the illness dictate which approach is used. If a patient is presenting to the healthcare provider for a specific problem, such as a sore throat, then a focused history and physical is completed. If a patient presents for an annual physical examination or is a new patient, then the provider should use a comprehensive format which explores all the systems. Part of the role of the healthcare provider is to determine which SOAP format is to be used, what questions are pertinent to explore, and how the data can be integrated into an appropriate list of diagnosis, differential diagnosis, and problems. This organization of data presents a stepping stone for the next phase, the development of the treatment plan or plan of care. Thank you for your attention. Acupuncture for emergencies, frostbite. Frostbite is an injury caused by freezing of the skin and underlying tissues. The early stage of frostbite is called frostnip. It causes a cold feeling followed by numbness. As frostbite gets worse, the affected skin may change color and become hard or waxy looking. Exposed skin is at risk of frostbite in conditions that are freezing cold and windy or wet. Frostbite also can occur on skin covered by gloves or other clothing. Mild frostbite gets better with rewarming. Seek medical attention for anything more serious than mild frostbite because the condition can cause permanent damage to skin, muscle, bone, and other tissue. Put the frostbitten skin in warm water, 38 to 42 degrees Celsius, until the skin color becomes red. It needs about 30 to 60 minutes. Do not use snow to rub or to warm it by a fire. Wash the frostbitten skin with warm ginger or hot pepper water. Cook the ginger or pepper in water for 20 to 30 minutes before use. Use acupuncture on surrounding acupuncture points, whichever they are. Perform acupuncture around the affected skin, 0.2 centimeters from the edge of the lesion. Quickly stub and take off the needle. Do not retain the needle. Then perform acupuncture with several needles on the edge of the skin lesion and around the lesion with intervals of 0.2 to 0.5 centimeter and a shallow stab. Again, use several needles around the lesion, and in the lesion area, stab the needle with intervals of 0.25 to 0.5 centimeters. Repeat the inner acupuncture in circles until up to the center of the skin lesion, fewer and fewer needles in each circle. Finally, use one thick needle to stop bleeding, no needle retention. This acupuncture technique is used once every other day. Use acupuncture on the SJ5, kidney 9, LI4, SJ3, and Bakshi for frostbite on the hands points, or liver 3, liver 2, stomach 41, UB60, and stomach 44 for frostbite on the feet, or acupuncture points on the back of the ear for frostbite on the ear. Choose 3 or 4 points each time. Retain the needle for 30 minutes. Local bleeding therapy can be used together with acupuncture. Use direct moxibustion on the skin lesion. Use a burned moxi roll. Quickly, 2 to 3 times per second, touch the frostbitten skin and lift. The frostbitten skin will feel slight burning pain, but there will be no scar later. Repeat this for 5 to 10 minutes once a day or once every other day, with 7 sessions as one healing period. Use indirect moxibustion on frostbitten skin. Put a thin piece of fresh ginger, about 2 millimeters thick and 2 to 3 centimeters in diameter, on the skin. Put a moxicone, about 1 centimeter high and 1 centimeter in diameter, on it. Burn the moxicone. Move it aside after the patient feels a strong burning sensation. Do not leave the skin until the moxie no longer gives a burning sensation. Repeat 3 to 5 such cone burnings for each session once a day for 5 days. Use bleeding therapy on the frostbitten skin. Use a triangle-edged needle to make the frostbitten skin bleed. The amount of blood is about 0.2 to 0.3 ml each time and once a day. If the intensity of the frozen damage is very heavy, additional herbal therapy should be also considered. Thank you for your attention. Fibromyalgia, connecting Luo channels. The connecting channels are called luomai. Luo means network. The main channels are called Jingmai, and Jing means line, route, way. Therefore, the main channels are compared with routes or lines, which implies a vertical flow of qi, whereas the connecting channels are compared with a network of channels flowing in all directions, which implies a horizontal flow of qi. Chapter 17 of the Spiritual Axis confirms that the connecting channels are horizontal or crosswise. The main channels are in the interior. Their horizontal or crosswise branches are the connecting channels. The connecting channels are more superficial than the main channels, and they run in all directions rather than vertically as the main channels do. In particular, they fill the space between skin and muscles, that is the Cooley space. As the connecting channels irrigate the surface of the body and the space between skin and muscles, they protect the body from invasion of external pathogenic factors. For this reason, they are the first to be invaded by external pathogenic factors. For example, when we suffer an invasion of external wind, the connecting channels are the first to be invaded. The protective function of the connecting channels is closely related to the circulation of the offensive qi outside the main channels. The spiritual axis in chapter 18 says, the human being receives qi from food. This enters the stomach, is transported to the lungs, that is the food qi. It is transformed into qi. The refined part becomes nutritive qi. The coarse part becomes defensive qi. Nutritive qi flows in the blood vessels and channels. Defensive qi flows outside the channels. The simple questions in chapter 43 says, defensive qi is derived from the coarse part of food and water, and it is slippery in nature, hence it cannot enter the channels. It therefore circulates under the skin, in between the muscles, it vaporizes in between the membranes, and diffuses over the chest and abdomen. Thus, the protective function of the connecting channels is intimately connected with the defensive qi and its circulation into space between skin and muscles. The connecting channels are the first to be invaded by pathogenic factors. In fibromyalgia, they are invaded by dampness that settles in the space between the skin and muscles and causes muscle ache and a feeling of heaviness of the limbs. Chapter 66 of the spiritual axis also describes the route of penetration of pathogenic factors. When pathogenic factors invade the body, they penetrate the skin first. When the skin is loosened, the space between skin and muscles, the cohuli, is open, and pathogenic factors will penetrate the hair, causing this to stand up. The pathogenic factors then enter the connecting channels, which causes muscle ache. Pathogenic factors will then enter the main channels. Within the space between the main channels and the skin that is occupied by the connecting channels, there are also degrees of depth. On the superficial layers just below the skin, there are smaller connecting channels called minute, sun, and superficial Fu connecting channels. Thank you for listening.